Did the early church fathers simply make up the idea that Jesus was God?
How do you know what the early Christians, right next to Jesus, what they believed he was saying? What did they hold? How far back can we go? And we are looking at some of the material that is the earliest historical material that tells us what those Christians believed. Now, some folks want to say they invented this whole idea of Christ and his divinity and being God and all this kind of stuff. Well, if you got to consider, this is the earliest information that we've got. And we're going to take a look at Romans chapter 1, verses 1 through 6. This came out in 57 AD. If Jesus died at 30, the fact is that's 27 years after the fact. Okay? It says, Paul, a servant of Jesus Christ, called to be an apostle, set apart for the gospel of God, which he promised beforehand through his prophets in the Holy Scriptures. Now listen, concerning his Son, who was descended from David according to the flesh, he was a man, and was declared to be the Son of God in power according to the Spirit of holiness by his resurrection from the dead, Jesus Christ our Lord. Darrell, talk about this.
Well, this is a doctrinal summary. It's like 1 Corinthians 15. It's one of 3 layers of early evidence that we have that everyone was exposed to in the church. Some of them are doctrinal summaries, some of them are hymns or songs, and the third category are sacraments, things like the Lord's Supper and baptism. They all taught the core theology. They were there from the very early days in the beginning. And in this text, what's important is we've got Jesus at a human level, descended from David, and we've got him, you read, the text reads declared. The word is actually horizoned. He's marked out as Son of God. He's demonstrated or shown to be Son of God by the resurrection, because the resurrection is God's vindication of who Jesus is and his claims.
Yeah, it's not saying he was adopted at that point.
That's right.
That's not the word that's used. It's another one he's recognized here.
That's exactly right. Just like the horizon marks off the separation from the edge of the earth to the heaven, so the resurrection marks out who Jesus is. It's like a highway placard that says, this is who Jesus is. Take a look at what this means.
Yeah, it's the grabber. I mean, the resurrection, that ought to tell you something.
That's right.
All right. And if somebody said, well, you know, they made this up in 20 years.
Well, this is a doctrinal summary that goes back to this early period. And again, we're back to the experience of Paul. Paul's experience comes within a couple of years of the time of these events in the 30s, when he sees Jesus on the Damascus Road and his theology changes. It's because Jesus was being preached as the one being seated at the right hand of God. It was because the apostles were declaring that Jesus was alive, that the tomb was empty, that a resurrection had taken place. And so Paul's message connects to the apostles' message at that point, and that gap that we've talked about that runs anywhere from 20 to 60 years all of a sudden has closed shut.